Welcome to 412 Sports Talk, the #1 podcast for Pittsburgh sports. Steelers, we talk it. Penguins, we talk it. Pirates, yeah, we talk it. With the biggest guests.
Bob Pompiani, Pittsburgh legend. Mayor Bill Peduto, the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, is on with us. Dorin Dickerson, West Allegheny legend.
Trey Essex, welcome.
Available on iTunes and Spotify. Hosted by Mad Chad Nolan.
It over too much. Well, now he's not turning it over at all.
And Eddie Provident.
We've got the best team in football.
And now, 412 Sports Talk.
All right, well, welcome to the latest episode of the 412 Sports Talk podcast, brought to you by MCM Studios. I'm your host, Eddie Provident. With me is my co-host and my main man, Mad Chad Nolan. Ooh. You can see this is actually the first episode, second episode, because we had the Mike Hitt episode. Yeah. But this is the first episode, just the two of us live in person. So we've got Dorin Dickerson joining us over Zoom in a little bit, and we've got a lot going on. This is the segment for all of you loyal viewers and listeners that aren't hip to the DKPittsburghSports.com. This will not be on DKPittsburghSports.com, but the rest of the show will. I guess we need to just jump right into it, Chad. We've got some Steelers news to deal with, and we'll talk to Dorin about this too, get his take since he is a former NFL player. But no more Dave Decastro. He's been let go by the Steelers. He's been released due to a non-football injury. What's your thoughts, buddy?
I mean, it's pretty terrible timing. Now you can see why they were interested in Trey Turner, because that stuff started to get noise before this news hit. So I'm thinking that they kind of already knew about it, and that's why they were already talking to Trey Turner. It doesn't surprise me because Decastro obviously played hurt last year. I remember Dejan saying that he was having some health issues, and we all saw it. He wasn't himself last year. He was an all-pro caliber player. He was the best guard they've had since Alan Faneca. Now, so it's tough. Injuries are the thing that, like, I'm big into, like, looking at teams and what they're going to do, and, like, you never, like, go, oh, well, he's going to get injured and never play again, because, like, I don't think that they thought that either. It's tough. You lose Pouncey to retirement, and now Decastro to injury, and it sounds like, from what I was looking on Twitter, that he's probably going to retire. Yeah. So that's crazy to lose both those guys in the same offseason. But I do wonder if they would have been able to know, like, hey, he's not going to be on our plans. I wonder if that draft would have went a little different. Maybe they don't take the tight end in the second round, and right, maybe they go O-line a little earlier. But Trey Turner, I mean, he's a Pro Bowl caliber guard, so I don't know if he's going to be a drop off compared to what Decastro brought last year. It kind of just sucks.
Yeah. I mean, especially because we're looking at a guy. I don't know that I would consider Decastro a Hall of Famer, but he needed a couple more Pro Bowls. But he was one of those guys that was, I would say, he was one of the top 5 to 10 guards in the league for
I think years. From 14 to 17, he went to 3. He was a 3-time All-Pro.
He was one of the guys, man. So whenever you see a career like that presumably end, like I said, we're not 100% certain on that. He hasn't announced anything yet, so we don't want to go ahead and jump to conclusions. But if it's a non-football injury, if it's something that sidelined, I believe it's his ankle. If it's sidelined him this long, if it's bothered him this much, here's hoping that he is able to pick it back up, and whether it's with a restructured contract with the Steelers or somebody else. You never want to see anybody end their career like that. But yeah, man, it's tough to see that. It's tough for the Steelers offensive line. Now, if they get Trey Turner, that really makes things a little easier to swallow. But let's assume for a second that they don't get Trey Turner. Let's assume that they're going to go now. Is all of a sudden is BJ Finney your starting guard, or
I think he would have to be by default. I think they'll get Trey Turner. I mean,
I hope so. I mean, he's been
they
here
kind of have to at this point. But we're going to talk to Dorin about this. It's like, man, that offensive line all of a sudden, holy hell, that's a pretty young and, like, raw offensive line, because Dotson, who I think has, like, a Pro Bowl caliber ability, he's still going to be a first-year starter.
Right.
Chooks is moving to a new position. Zach Banner is unproven. You just drafted a center.
Marks, yeah.
You're talking about 4 of your 5 offensive line are going to be first-year starters.
Yeah.
What other team in the league is even going through that? And the offensive line was a big issue last year. Everybody blamed everything on Ben and, whether they were right or wrong, on Randy Fichtner. But the fact is, the offensive line was not good last year. That was why they weren't able to run for short yardage. I mean, they were just dreadful when it comes to like picking up 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. You don't need me to tell you that. But now it's like, okay, it's more of an unknown. They might actually be really good because all these guys have potential, but they're unproven. There's no doubt about that. And then you got a going on 40-year-old quarterback and a rookie running back. So I don't know, man. Like, I don't think I'm as optimistic on this team as I was, just because it's hard. Like, it's hard to predict unknown. If they would have came back with a lot of what they had, I would have been able to like, okay, this is what I expect. Now I'm like, I have no idea, because they could all be great. Like Kendrick Green could be great.
Yep.
He could be pouncy,
yep,
or he could be terrible. We don't know. Dotson, he showed flashes, but that's just a small sample size. And then Chooks and Banner are both. Chooks is playing a new position, and Banner's still, he's never had a real. He started like 2 series, so
yep.
like we have no idea. It's yeah. If I'm Ben, I'm like.
Yeah, I was talking with my pops on the phone on the way here to record, and one thing he says, well, I guess we're seeing a lot more of that quick release offense.
I mean, yeah, but we don't know.
Yeah.
Like, these guys might be able to pass block their ass off. We have no idea.
I mean, I think from, if you've listened to interviews from the Steelers brass, I think this is the route that they're going. But I think we're going to see a much heavier run game this year. We're going to see a lot more reliance on the run game. And I think it's by default with Najee Harris. And I mean, let's look at them. I think Dotson is a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. I think that with 2 unproven tackles, you definitely want to be able to run block.
And an unproven center.
For them. Yeah. And an unproven center who's by all accounts is going to be a good zone run blocker. But I mean, again, it's unproven. I think it's going to be very hard for them to be worse than they were last year. But even if they're as good as they were last year, that's not good at all. That's terrible. Like you were saying, they're 3rd and 4th in short, chances and everything were miserable. They couldn't convert. They couldn't get a yard if their lives depended on it. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see. I know one thing for certain. They're going to be relying on this defense a lot.
But I also think that makes the Najee Harris pick, like, a lot of people, especially the local media, were so against it just because it was a running back. But I think that's why they know, like, honestly, the guard's changing. This has to be Ben's last year. I think it will be. You look at this offense, right? Let's go just 3 years ago since that Jacksonville playoff game. You have no Brown, no Bell, no Martavis Bryant, no Heath Miller. You have no Decastro, no Pouncey, no Villanueva, no Matt Filer. They've lost 8 starters on that offense. Yeah. And Juju's probably going to be gone after this year, and Ben's probably going to be gone. This is the changing of the guard of a new era of Steelers football. And I think if Najee is as good as I think he's going to be, and I think he's going to be a top 10 caliber back as far as, like, when you look at the end of the year, yards from scrimmage, I think you'll see his name there. I think that's who you build this offense around.
I think you have to, yeah. But again, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out at Heinz Field and at the UPMC Sports Complex on the South Side, because it was just announced today also that they will not be attending training camp at St. Vincent College, which sucks for Latrobe and for the local businesses up there. So if you're from that area, you're close to that area, make sure you take care of your
because about that.
The pandemic already hit a lot of small businesses. So if you're a small business up in the Latrobe area, or if you're close to one, make sure we're taking care of our small businesses. But yeah, the hot takes on the Latrobe thing, man, that was, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't know that the players care as much where they hold training camp. I don't think it's that big of a deal to them. I mean, if anything, they don't have to leave home. They don't have to go in a dorm room.
It's not the Steelers' fault. So
yeah, it's not exactly. Like it's not like there was anything that could have prevented this. I mean, I think it's a nothing it's a nothing announcement that people are trying to spin into a something announcement.
I mean,
is what I think it is.
It's. I mean, as content creators ourselves, this time of year,
not a lot to talk about.
Not gonna lie, like the Decastro kind of threw us a bone. Like, here you go. There's some news.
Thank God it happened on a day we record.
I will say there is one of the coolest things you can do as a Steeler fan is usually at Latrobe, they have a Friday night practice, right? And it's open to the public, and then the guys all come and sign autographs. It's cool as hell, man. I'm not even one of those guys. Like, I don't chase autographs and stuff like that. I've never
been to a training camp.
Got it. Like, next year, if they do it, it's funny because yesterday, someone on Twitter was like, "Is anyone going to training camp?" And I was like, "I'm going to take my son up to the night practice." And then today they were like, "No, you ain't."
Well, it sounds like from what I hear, like this is just from what I heard from like inside the, like I got a couple of friends that, that work for the stadium and all that. Sounds like they're going to try to do some things open to the public.
Oh, really? Okay, that would be
now,
cool.
I don't quote me on that, but it sounds like they are trying to work out the logistics to get some things together for the public. So hopefully we'll still be able to take, you'll be able to take Jameson. And,
that'd be cool. I'm telling you, it's cool. Man. Like, they run the drills they run. They'll have they'll do like a 2-minute drill. They'll do a goal line drill. They tackle and hit and everything like that. They have fireworks at the end. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, if you've never been to a practice, that's the one. But like Latrobe, a lot of times they'll have like NFL camp there where like little kids can take a football and run through the pads and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely disappointing. I hope that they can do that. But at the same time, the people on Twitter today that were like, "Oh, this is so stupid. It's a conspiracy." I saw a conspiracy against the Steelers. I saw COVID conspiracies, and I'm like, listen, what did you expect? This is the NFL protecting its product. The product's always going to come first before our interest, our own interest. Whoa, I want to be able to go to Latrobe. Yes, we do. And I'm sure the players, if they had a preference, they would want that. We're getting there. Like, literally, like I'm walking around without a mask like 99% of the time now. Like, we're getting there.
It's beautiful being
vaccinated.
Man.
Again, do your part, and then hopefully next year, I imagine we'll be back to normal. So,
before we wrap this segment up, the last thing that I want to talk to you about, Chad, I want to get into the hockey world a little bit.
Okay.
I'm going to throw 3 instances out there. I can't remember players, so forgive me, but we had one instance where it was Eric Stahl playing for the Canadians who took a high stick to the face, to the point where he looked like Frankenstein with his stitches. He came out after they won the game in overtime, all bloodied up. Nothing called, and that happened relatively close to a referee. In the same series, I think it was the next game or 2 games later, somebody from Vegas sucker punched I think it was Anderson or Suzuki. It was Nick Suzuki.
Yeah.
Sucker punched Suzuki in the face, not in front of the ref, and the ref literally just looked away from it. Like, he just turned completely turned the other way. No penalty called. And then last night in the game between the Lightning and the Islanders, one of the Islanders players was it? I'm drawing.
It was Scott Mayfield.
Yeah, Scott Mayfield.
Who's dirty?
Yeah, who DK on Twitter today pointed out that he was pretty dirty through the Penguins series. Yeah, and he was one of the most blatant, nasty cross checks. If you've never played ice hockey, there is a part of your body where there is no padding. And it's like right under your rib cage, between your chest, your chest and shoulder protector and your hockey pants. There's a little spot in there where there's nothing, and it's like right here. And if you look at the recording, Mayfield goes after Kucherov with a nasty cross check from behind, right in that spot where there is nothing, and he hurt him. He hurt Kucherov, and I think that the only reason why to make a cross check like that is to hurt somebody. Again, it was right in front of a referee, and there was nothing called. At what point, my question for you, Chad, is at what point in time is the NHL going to realize that the officiating is ruining the game? All the conversations that you and I have had about tough guys getting tougher, getting bigger, all comes back to the officials not calling the game the way it's supposed to be called, and it always gets worse during the playoffs. When does this change?
So it feels like it's a circle that repeats, because we had this issue in the late 90s and the 2000s. Yeah. And then whenever the lockout happened, and then like they were They were actually
It was literally
promoting
called the clutch and grab.
Yeah, they were promoting Crosby and Ovechkin, and they came out and said, "Hey, we're going to call a lot more penalties," and they did. I was going back every once in a while if I'm bored, I go back and watch all the the Penguin highlights, and I was watching the 07 run when they made the Stanley Cup final and lost, and the 09 run, and I was like, dude, they had a lot of power plays. And I was like, man, that made it so fun to watch. It made it fun to watch Gonchar and Crosby and Malkin and Letang on these power plays. And this is why the NHL won't escape. And again, I put hockey and baseball in the same category where these old time, and I'm not trying to be ageist, or I'm sure someone's gonna be like, you hate old people. But listen, the boomers, the people that are 50 years old and up, that are the gatekeepers of these sports. And there are some young people that for whatever reason agree with them.
They fall into it. There's some older people that are not like that, but yeah.
They hate fun. I don't understand what it is. That hockey is a niche sport, and I think baseball has become a niche sport. We were talking about last week. We're like, I talked to my friends about it all the time. Like, man, baseball used to have so many more big name players that were like mainstream celebrities. Like Nomar Garciaparra used to be on SNL and stuff like that, and you don't have that anymore.
Derek Jeter,
and it's because they're like, no, we want to cater to our core audience. And I get that at a point, but okay, then don't complain about TV ratings and stuff like that, because I tune in to see Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point and Stamkos. These guys are incredible. Kucherov's having an all-time great postseason. And then you have some guy, no offense, but like, no one cares about Scott Mayfield.
No, not at all.
He is a run-of-the-mill second or third pair defenseman, and this dude's been cheap shotting people all postseason, and you're not calling penalties. And you not calling penalties is the reason why the Islanders are able to continue to beat teams who are superior to them, because look at Tampa Bay's power play. It's unstoppable. But if you're not giving them chances, they're not going to – you're ruining your sport.
One of the things that blew my mind was through the entire Edmonton series against Winnipeg, Connor McDavid did not draw a single penalty that entire series. How is that possible? Connor McDavid, the best player on the planet right now, doesn't draw a single penalty in an entire playoff series.
And that's not by accident. The NHL is literally doing this on purpose. They're instructing these referees to swallow their whistles. And like people are like, oh,
and that's not to interrupt you, but that's documented. There's emails that have come out from Colin Campbell that he was questioning why they were calling so many penalties on his kid, and then also saying, hey, cut out the penalties a little bit, let the game move a little faster. Like he actually instructed referees to do that.
Imagine the NBA like LeBron, he goes to dunk and someone literally just comes up and just pushes him, pushes
out
him,
of midair.
And the referee's like, no, good play. And that's not, no, because they understand that people are there to watch that. They're there to watch Luka and LeBron and all their big name players. Same with the NFL. Mahomes drops back to pass and he throws a bomb to Tyreek Hill, and all of a sudden the safety comes out of nowhere and just crushes him before he catches the ball. And they're like, no flag. And no. The NFL has literally become more popular because of your Mahomes and all these guys.
And because they call penalties.
And because they call penalties and they're scoring.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be nonstop, but if it's a blatant penalty in front of officials and you're not calling it, you're ruining your sport.
And Chad, you brought something up a couple of minutes ago that I wanted to hit on. They're catering to that crowd that their core fans,
and it's not even their core fans. It's a core of the core.
But let's look at it this way: if you're listening to our podcast, you are a diehard sports fan.
Yes,
and most likely, if you're listening to our podcast, you're probably a diehard hockey fan, because we are both hockey leaning guys.
Yes, our show's hockey dominated.
So
yes,
if you're one of those people, and if you're one of those people that are actively looking for different ways to consume hockey, there's nothing that the NHL is going to do to lose you, right? They're not going to lose you. If you're one of those old time hockey guys that have been a hockey guy for life, you
can watch the Russia League.
Yeah, you're the guy that like how my dad is with football. My dad has been texting me nonstop about this developmental league. you know, in the Mega Bowl or whatever they had this past week. I know that the lineman won that game because my dad was texting me score updates, because he'll consume football any way that he can get it. If you're one of those people with hockey, and that's who the NHL seems to be catering to in this situation, they don't need to cater to that crew, because no matter what they do, that crew is going to love hockey. That crew is going to follow the NHL. They're going to be ticked off about some things, and they're going to be upset about some things, but the NHL is not going to lose that crowd. What they should be doing is examine, like what you said, do what the NFL did, do what the NBA did, examine ways that you can change your game to make it more appealing to the mass public, make it more fun for people who've never seen hockey before, that will go to a game for the first time, see how exciting it is, see how fast it is, how electric it is in person, and become hooked for life. That's what they need to be doing, and they're not doing it because they're dumb.
Not to mention that, like, a power play is literally how you build drama in a, because here's the thing, either way, there's nothing more exciting than either scoring a power play goal, or if you're the home team defending a power play, killing a penalty is like, it literally gives your entire team and fan base a jolt and momentum. And you're literally, drama is what makes anything, whether it's a movie, TV show, a book, or sports. That's what makes the unknown. That's the entertainment value right there. And I said, go back and watch those old Penguin Cup runs from 08 and 09. And it was crazy. They were getting like 4 power plays a game, and it made it more entertaining.
Absolutely.
And like, if you tune into Game 7 against the Islanders and Tampa Bay, and there's like 1 penalty called, and they're like, yeah, this is like, oh, this sucks. Like, Scott Mayfield's out there killing people, and good players, Nikita Kucherov, who's averaging 1.4 points per game, and you're robbing him of a chance to entertain people and perform to his max capacity to cater to these old-time Canadian gatekeeping guys, and it just sucks, and it's ruining your product. I mean, I'm a hardcore hockey fan. I gotta tell you, if it's Habs and Islanders,
I'm gonna be real frustrated.
I'm not gonna watch every game. I'm just not, and I am a hardcore down-to-earth hockey fan.
Do you know what sucks is you've got storylines like Nikita Kucherov averaging 1.4 points a game, hasn't played at all in the regular season, and you've got that whole saga that we could be talking about,
and a chance to win back-to-back cups.
A chance to win back-to-back cups. You've got Steven Stamkos, who is the proverbial injured captain, and he's been playing very good hockey.
Braden Point is one of the most exciting players in the league.
You've got on the other side, you've got Carey Price, who's playing some of the best goalie that I've seen in a couple of years,
and he deserves it.
And he's been that career guy who's never got this far. I mean, there are so many things that we could be talking about right now in hockey, and we're talking about how officials don't know how to officiate the game. It's
well,
sucks,
and that's
man.
what, whenever we get a chance to talk to Dejan, I want to talk to him about, like, I think officials in sports in general have too much power. They love the human element. They want to have the human element, and I get it. And they're never going to replace these guys because it's jobs, and that's always going to come firsthand. But it is very frustrating when these guys have that much power over an outcome, and I think it robs fans. Like, I think you're being very ignorant to your fan base, and you're literally turning people away from something that they enjoy, and that it's like reverse marketing. It's actually incredible, like how dumb it is.
Yep. Well, listen, we've got a lot to cover with Dorin Dickerson in the next segment, so we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Dorin Dickerson of the Pittsburgh Penguins. 412 Sports Talk family, what's going on? It's your guy, Eddie P. I'm sitting in MCM Studios right now with our sponsor, my man, Mike Hitt. Mike, what's going on, brother?
What's up, bro? 412 Sports Talk Podcast, Pittsburgh, PA. What is up?
What we're doing is, we're a local podcast. We talk Pittsburgh sports. We're completely supported by people that are either from Pittsburgh or have ties to Pittsburgh. And even our sponsor, MCM Studios, is over in Allentown, in the heart of the city of Pittsburgh. But I wanted to bring you into the studio so you could see what Mike's got going on, and you can see a little bit of, what happens behind the scenes here at MCM Studios. Mm-hmm. So, Mike, what are you working on right now, man?
I'm working with always a stable of talented artists whether they're from Pittsburgh, they come to Pittsburgh to come to MCM Studios, they move here from out of town, whatever the case may be, a young, old, guy, girl, pop, rock, reggae, R&B, trap music. You know, I just work with a lot of guys that need the love and the attention and the direction in order to get their sound and their business together and their whole artistry, you know, in a position that is the quality and the vision that they were looking for. I kind of just helped them bring all that together. So they're like, oh, you know, or I would have been lost for the next 3 years if you wouldn't have said, hey, go do this, or sing your song like this, or write a song like this, or this is a good look for you as an artist. That's really what MCM Studios does, and what I have going on is just continually helping artists. If they get famous, they get famous. If they don't, they don't. But just helping them along on this artistic journey so they can look back, and it felt like it was worth it.
Yes. I know how much it means to be a musician and need that backup. And I'll be honest with you, Mike has been a big part of the business side of 412 Sports Talk and how much we've grown as a business too, helping us with the legal side of things, giving us all the tips that he's learned in 10, 11 years of business. So, like I said, I just wanted to get you guys to take a look at the studio, hear it from Mike himself, and just get a little bit of the behind the scenes of one of our sponsors, our first sponsor, MCM Studios. And you can check them out at 412mcmstudios.com. You can check them out on Facebook at MCM Studios Pittsburgh. Check Mike out on Twitter at Mike Hitman with 2 T's. Let's build this Pittsburgh community because there's a lot of cool people, a lot of talented people, and a lot of great things going on in the city. Mike, you got anything else to leave them with?
You know, support the people around you that are doing cool things. If you can see that they're serious and they're dedicated and they're putting the time and they're making the investment in themselves, at least make, at the very minimum, the investment of believing in them. That's what I did for 412 Sports Talk Podcast. That's what I do at the studio with the artist. Just look at your life as one big investment, and I really think by doing that, we can all help bring everybody around us up.
So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this little mini tour. We'll be back with stuff like this. In the meantime, again, I'm Eddie Provident. From Mad Chad Nolan, from my man Mike Hitt. We'll catch you later.
Peace.
No, a little bit more centered.
All right, we'll hit record and we'll get it's recording. So, all right, welcome to another episode of 412 Sports Talk. I am your host, Eddie Provident. With me is my main man, Mad Chad, and our guest for the third time, friend of the show, Dorin Dickerson.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys always having me on, and congratulations, you guys are moving on up like the Jeffersons. You guys are becoming big time. I mean, it's an honor for me to be on your show right now, and you guys are doing your thing.
Well, you've been a big part of it, man. From the first time we asked you to come on, you've been a big help, and you've always. I mean, I've asked you to help my father-in-law out, and you've obliged. So you're always willing to help, man, and we appreciate that. So you definitely have no small part in this. I want to get right on the Steelers topic of the day.
Yeah.
Dave Decastro released for a non-football injury. Do you think that this is a sign of retirement for Dave, and do you think that this is going to hurt or help the Steelers' offensive line?
Well, I mean, for the offensive line, I mean, they're fairly new. Obviously, Pouncey's out, and you got to find a new center. They drafted Kendrick Green out of Illinois, so he's going to be a young guy. Chuksa Okorafor is moving over to the other side of the line. Zach Banner, you don't know what he's going to be able to do this year, coming off an injury. So to me, DeCastro was the glue of the offensive line, keeping it together for this year. And, he hasn't been the same physically in the past couple of years. I think we all seen that. He's one of the best pulling guards, we've seen in a long time, but he hasn't really, shown that in the last couple of years. But what he does do that we don't see is, keep them together. He's that veteran in the locker room. He's the, the ace on the offensive line, that grit whenever you do need that 3rd and 1. He was that guy to get everybody going. So, physically, hopefully they can replace him. They're looking at Trey Turner. Money-wise, I think they saved, $8.75 million for the cap, if releasing David Decastro. But if they do sign Trey Turner, I think he made like 8.1 million. So, I think it's kind of a push if you do sign a guy like Trey Turner. I don't know what that, the logistics of that's going to be with the money, but Trey Turner is very serviceable. He's a veteran. He, is very confident in his position, and he could plug and play. But there's still just a new dynamic to the offensive line. There's a new offensive coordinator. So it's just going to be different, and you're losing that guy. Maybe they just want a new regime. They want to just start clean. I get that. But, with Ben coming back and, Ben saying he has a little bit left in the tank, that was very surprising that they did release David Decastro. And, like I said, he was the glue for a long time. And, now you got to figure out who's going to be that glue now.
When you hear, when people hear leadership's like a buzzword, like that people throw around. Anytime a player gets signed, they're like, he's going to bring leadership to the locker room. But you were in these locker rooms, both on the NFL level, high school level, college level. For people that aren't in the locker rooms, is leadership, is that an overrated quality? And how important is someone like a Pouncey or a Decastro when it comes to providing leadership for those that are not in those locker rooms and don't know exactly what that term means?
Well, there's a standard to, each team in the NFL. And every team obviously wants to make it and go to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl. But there's a standard in the NFL, not just as a team, but as a professional football player. How you carry yourself as a pro is the standard. And when I was in Houston, that's where I learned that. The Andre Johnsons, the Bernard Pollards, the Dwayne Browns. I mean, I'm missing so many guys, the Matt Schaubs and Kevin Walters, Owen Daniels. Those guys were the leaders. Even Kevin Bentley, he only played special teams, but he was a 10-year special teams ace, and he was a leader on special teams. And you carried yourself a certain way whenever you're around those guys, because they set the bar at a certain level. Yeah, we didn't win a Super Bowl, but they taught you how to be a pro, how to attack your craft every single day to try to have the great opportunity to make it to a Super Bowl. And, the leadership, it's huge, and especially for young guys, like myself. I was a rookie and looking up to guys like Andre Johnson and how he even took care of his body, how he treated his body after practice and before practice. And, when did he wake up and, how much sleep did he get? I mean, those little things, they do matter, especially for a guy like Kendrick Green. I mean, he's coming in, he's playing a position that is very, very, intellectually, on a high level for offensive lineman. You're the quarterback of the offense. You're calling out mic points. You're setting protections. You're getting everybody in line to be able to give, to be able to service Ben and keep him clean. So, a guy like Decastro, he could he could be a big asset to a guy like Kendrick Green, who is a rookie. Now, Kendrick Green, I'm not saying if they do sign Trey Turner, he could be that guy, but Trey Turner is going to try to, fill out himself. I mean, it's a new team, new area, new time period. So then you look to the left, you have Kevin Dotson, who's a second-year guy. And that is tough for young players to not have that type of leadership in your position group. So, I do think that those cliches of leadership are for real, and they're more than what people see on the outside.
So you were a tight end when you played. All of this offensive line turnover, how does this change the game for someone playing the tight end position? So, what's this going to do for Eric Ebron and even Pat Freiermuth coming into a new offense as a rookie? How does this change things for them, because they don't have that solidified group that the Steelers have had for the past before last year, the past few years? What does this, when you're, in practice and when you're in the playbook, what does this do for you?
Well, back when I played, tight ends had to block. I mean, if you couldn't block, you were getting cut, or you just weren't going to play at all. You were expected to block. You're expected to line up in line. You're expected to reach block a defensive end in a 9 technique or cut off a defensive end in a 7 technique. They didn't care how big you were. They didn't care how skinny you were. If you couldn't do that, you weren't making the team. So, but with the new regime nowadays, I mean, that was 10 years ago. The new regime nowadays, you have the Freiermuths, you have the Eric Ebrons. They're going to be split out more. They're going to be, asked to run down the seams and maybe, block a nickel or block a linebacker on some plays. They're not going to be in line as much. And with Matt Canada's offense, I think he's very creative, and he's not going to put them in situations where they'll get beat. But the position group that this will affect the most is the running back position, with the Derek Watts and the Najee Harris. Now they will stay in and protect. I mean, as we've seen it, you have to be able to protect at the R position, the running back position, the tailback position, and the fullback position. So I think that what we'll see is, if the line is trying to figure themselves out and trying to, figure out, who does what well, how are they going to gel, you're going to see Derek Watt a lot in protection just to give that extra boost to the offensive line. You're going to see Najee Harris be asked to pick up a Mike linebacker blitzing more than he probably would if there was a veteran offensive line. So the running back position is probably going to have the most on their shoulders protection-wise with this new offensive line regime. And I mean, in my opinion, maybe Freiermuth and Ebron will be asked to stay in and pass block one time a game, but they're not going to be asked to do that for a whole series. So not like the Heath Millers, not like, the guys we grew up watching. I mean, it's just changed now. Right. They're glorified basketball players at the tight end position, very athletic, can run, long, lanky, can get down the seam and get those yak yards. So I think that's what's going to be expected out of the tight end group this year.
We are here with our main man, our third-time guest, Dorin Dickerson, friend of the show. We've been talking a lot of football. I want to keep it on football, but Chad and I wanted to talk to you. We kind of got into this conversation the last time you were on with us. I want to talk about some WPIAL All-Stars in your mind, and who you played against, and then who you've seen, the number one on each side of it. Like the number one player that you ever played against or with, and then the number one player that you've seen in your lifetime.
Well, played against that, that's tough because it was really myself. But
when I asked the question on Twitter, I mean, your name was right there as the most mentioned.
I'm just messing. But the player that I remember, it was my freshman and sophomore year, and I remember going down to the WPIAL games, and I remember watching this player and being like, man, I have to get on that level. Like, just amazed at how fast and how quick and just how dominant this guy was. He became my favorite player in high school, and I wanted to do everything he did plus more, and that was Eugene Jarvis. Eugene Jarvis was the best high school football player, in my opinion, I've ever seen. To this day, I still see him, and I just tell him, listen, man, like I wanted to be like Eugene Jarvis, even though he was 5'5". That didn't matter to me. He played like he was 6'3", 220 pounds.
Other than size, do you think, because he went to
Kent State.
Kent State. That's like one of the Ohio schools. Other than size, do you think there's any other reason why he didn't go further than D1 football?
You know what? I think that he got hurt a little bit. I'm not sure, injuries, but yeah. And I'm very good friends with this guy too. And I remember thinking, they offered this guy. And Pitt offered this guy, and they didn't offer Eugene Jarvis. And I'm like, that's the same player. And I was like, Eugene is like electrifying. That's LaRod Stevens-Howling. Like, they were the same size. And I was like, well, why isn't Eugene Jarvis getting these big time offers that LaRod was getting? So that always boggled my mind. But I believe that like Eugene, he set records at Kent State, but I think he got hurt. I think he had like a kidney issue his senior year. But yeah, one of the best players I've ever seen in high school.
He was the running back when my friend, when Shane Murray was the quarterback at Central. And I remember watching those teams just because Shane was a few years older than me, but we played at Greenfield together. And so, having one of my friends that played, going to state titles and WPIAL titles like that was pretty cool. So that's why I remember Eugene, was because I was so into that team because of Shane, and was that Buddy Skeels and
Pelusi.
Pelusi and all those guys. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
there was
they
like
were
a
good.
golden age of WPIAL that I felt like it was like the mid 2000s, where there was like Justin King, Darren Walls, who I was a big fan of because I have connections to the Woodland Hills, and he went to Notre Dame. I'm sure I'm missing some. Russell Shell was in the mid 2000s. I went to, my team was terrible my senior year. I went to Steel Valley, and it was right before Eddie and Coach Steele came over and rejuvenized the program. But my senior year was Terrell Pryor's sophomore year, and I saw Terrell Pryor play live, basketball and football. And to me, that's the best high school athlete I've ever witnessed. It looked like he was playing against kids, like Mighty Mites. I have never been awed by a high school athlete. I remember he got a technical because he like dunked almost from the foul line in high school, and they were like, "No, you ain't doing that here." But I don't know if you guys saw Terrell play in person, but just pure athleticism, to me, that's the best athlete I've seen in WPIALs.
I seen Terrell play basketball. I'd never seen him play football. I knew him real well. I'm 2 years older than him too, so we graduated the same year, me and you. I mean, just unbelievable. Just, that dominant aspect. And, another guy like that really hits home for me that I watched growing up and I wanted to be like was Tyler Pelko. I mean, obviously he went to same high school as Dad, was my high school coach. I mean, watching him play the game, he was just such a gamer. Like he could play defense, he could play offense, he could throw, he could run, he could do it all. And I remember, I was young. I was in 8th grade, 7th grade whenever he was like a senior, and just watch him. I was like, I want to be like that. So like those guys like Tyler and guys like Darrell Revis ended up playing with them at Pitt. I was like, I want to be like that. So they kind of gave me the motivation to try to at least get on their level.
Yeah. Prior, he was something else. And then I'll tell you one dude, the same generation, we're talking about the golden age. Steve Breston was another dude.
Oh, Stevie B, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's a good guy too.
I coached with his brother at Steel Valley for a couple years. But I remember that same Central team with Shane Murray and all those guys on it. And they at Heinz Field for the WPIAL title. And we just went into, all the Central fans went into that thinking it was a wrap. And Steve Breston absolutely stole the show at Heinz Field, man. Like he ran all over them. I've never seen a quarterback do what he did at high school. Call it for one game. He just absolutely took over the game. There was no answer. There was absolutely no answer for him. And I walked out of that. I was probably 14 years old, and I just walked out of that like in awe. Like did not think somebody could do that to Central.
See, like Stevie Breston, I feel like he gets credit, but he doesn't get a lot of credit for being, dominant in high school, dominant at Michigan, and pretty dominant in the NFL with the Cardinals.
Couple thousand yard
great career. Like this dude was a really freaking good football player every single level. Like
he's a great guy off the field,
and a great
too,
guy.
Man. Yeah, like what him and his brother are doing for their community, they do so much. And you're right, you never hear his name. He's always behind the scenes. He's always out of the limelight. But yeah, if there's one of the guys from the WPIAL that's like one of the good guys and quality players, it's absolutely Breston. Yeah.
What's in the water though? With like, if you look at the map, right? Like Texas, Florida, California, like Pennsylvania, especially Western Pennsylvania, our population is nowhere as close as those states. But like even my high school, like Steel Valley, like my graduating class, we had like 98 people, but we've put 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. How? Like mathematically, that's so impossible to do. So what do you like? What is it? Just our culture here that just like football is just preached, and that's maybe some kids look at it as a way of getting yourself in college and to have a good life. Like what was your experience that like, in the WPIALs as great as you were, but also taking a look around and being like, why there's so many great players coming here? What do you have like an answer for that? Or is it just an anomaly or what?
I think it's grit, and I think it's tradition too. And kind of like what I've just said about a couple guys. I think that a lot of guys in the WPIAL, they hear those big time names. They hear that you got a kid that's in 8th grade at Aliquippa. Right now, he knows who Darrell Revis is, and he's like, I want to be like Darrell Revis, or even like a kid at Beaver Falls, like that wants to play quarterback. Like I want to be like Joe Namath from back in the 60s. Like, like these are big time. Johnny Unitas. There's the Dan Marino. There's so like it just keeps trickling down. Like guys and kids pay attention to that stuff. And even when I went to Pitt, I was like, well, there's Tony Dorsett, there's Bill Fralick, there's there's so many guys that it's like Curtis Martin. There's so many guys, Ironhead Hayward. There's so many guys that you look at and you're like, man, like these guys came from where I came from. Like I got to do the same thing. So you kind of hold yourself at a high level in the grit. And I think, our parents, how we were raised, the toughness, the toughness and, playing in the backyard whenever it's 2 degrees out with your buddies at the baseball field or, at the park or whatever, and, tackling and being blood, some kids are, at the beach down in Florida or in California, like hanging out. That's what we were doing.
When I was still at Steel Valley, it was 2016. It was our first scrimmage of the season. We scrimmaged Clairton, And so that would have been he just graduated from Penn State.
Lamont Wade.
Lamont Wade.
Yeah,
It would have been
Lamont
Wade
Wade.
and Paris Ford's senior years. And that was a better football game than I had seen all season. And it was just because Paris and Lamont were just going at each other. And they've known each other since they were kids. So they were, they'd always gone up against each other. But I was up in the booth, and Lamont Wade, I think it was his uncle, was up in the booth with us. He coaches over at Clairton. And I asked him, I said, dude, what are you guys doing over here? You're a 1A school that's cranking out Division I athletes every couple years. You're always winning titles. You're always like in the thick of things when it comes to the best football teams in the state. Like, what are you guys doing over here? And he actually, I mean, it was a sobering answer, especially for a neighborhood like Clairton. One I related to, coming from Hazelwood, being at Steel Valley. But he was like, when these kids are little, they've got two options. They got the street or they got football.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the guys that choose the street, it sucks, but no one ever hears or sees it. That's it. But the guys that choose football, we have enough of them that we make sure when they choose football, they don't have a reason to go back to the streets.
Yep.
And for the most part, they're doing a really good job with it over there. And I think that's to your point, man. There's that grit. Like you have a decision to make early on in life. Are you going to do this or are you going to do that? And I think it makes boys men a lot quicker than it does in other parts of the country.
Yeah, for sure. And, that's why it is very crucial to have the right people, the right men as college football coaches, because you're getting a lot of those kids that have the only two choices. I was very fortunate that I didn't have to have just two choices in life. And I'm very fortunate that every day. But I'm very aware that there are kids out there that don't have that luxury. So that's why I believe it's very important to not just have the right coach in line at your university, but the right man to be able to lift these kids that are coming to your school to another level, to be able to push them as being and growing them as being young men. I mean, that's the biggest part about being a college football coach in my mind, is that, your crop of guys that you have, you need to make them young men. Like, you're not just coaching them football, you're coaching them life. So that's what I believe that, every university needs to make sure that they're doing.
Chad wanted to get into some stuff. We were just talking at the during the break here. He wanted to get into one of the favorites of the Pittsburgh sports world right now. Who you got, Chad?
So Lev Bell comes out, and I just find it funny that Lev Bell, he comes out and this man, especially like we talked about last segment, right? How you came from a situation where you had the right support and the right help. Lev Bell, I refuse to believe that he has the right people around him, because he seems to burn bridges wherever he goes. And he comes out and says he would rather retire than play for Andy Reid, which I'm not even sure he had a choice if he wanted to play for Andy Reid or not. But what are your thoughts on Lev Bell, and what are your thoughts on like players not getting maybe the right people in their life? Maybe they surround themselves with people that are just yes men, and not getting the tough love that I think maybe someone like Le'Veon Bell needs to get. Like, hey, sometimes it's okay to look in the mirror and say it's a you thing. You need to fix, and work on you. But I just want to get your thoughts on that and about Lev Bell and other players like that.
Well, Lev Bell's situation, he's just, he's spiraled out of control ever since the whole Steelers situation. I'm pretty sure that he probably sits there and whatever he does, makes his wraps up and probably sits there and thinks like, man, I should have just stayed a Steeler and retired. Like, I don't know, guys, they don't make the right decision sometimes. And, then they're in their feelings and they come out and they want to blame and point fingers. And that's what he's doing. And he probably won't play ever again. Nobody's going to pick him up after that. What coach would have any right mind to sign somebody like that? We saw him last year. It looked like he was running in sand. So, but for like the guys that with the support, and I always thought this, like, you're 21, 22 years old, you get drafted in the NFL, say you're a first round pick, and, you get that signing bonus, of like $40 million, whenever it wasn't the way it is now. Who's going to tell you what to do? Like, your parents never seen that amount of money. So you can't turn to your parents and be like, hey, can you guide me of how I should structure this? I'm 21 years old, and who are you going to go to? You're going to hire a financial advisor, you're going to hire an agent, you're going to pay them each 3%, and they're going to manage your money, and then they're going to manage you, for your contracts and your NFL team. But they're not going to tell you what to do. It's your money,
Yeah.
and you're 21 years old. Like, think about if you had $40 million whenever you're 21 years old, what would you do? I'm
No,
talking
and I
about
think
the
that's
young
a lot
guys.
of things that people like us don't consider, in these situations like that. That would easily change someone's principles, morals, and all
Everything.
that stuff. Yeah.
I mean, and you're just guessing too. It's like, all right, well, you know what? I got $40 million. So I just got drafted by the Houston Texans. I got, let's say, $20 million. All right, I could buy a nice mansion there for about, a couple $1 million. You know what? Back home, I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm going to buy me a nice mansion there too. And you know what? I actually like the beach. So I'm going to buy a nice mansion there. I got to get a bunch of cars, right? So I gotta put cars in these places. I got to furnish these places. So you're doing all that, and you're like, all right, I'm feeling good. So like now everybody loves you. Everybody wants to be around you. Everybody wants to come visit you, come to games.
Yeah.
You're getting 80 tickets a game, and everybody's like, all right, well, what do you want, Dorin? All right, well, what do you want? Dorin, do you want us to come down? Do you want to go out? Oh yeah, I'll go out. So like you have this mentality built up, and you have all this money that if you do get lucky and make it 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the league, I mean, that's your foundation of, who you are. I mean, yeah, you grow up into a man, you grow up and, maybe start a family, but a lot of these guys are single. A lot of these guys are still living that life of whenever they were 21 and whenever they were drafted, and nobody can tell them what to do. That's a lot of money to manage. And whenever you have money and you are successful like that and young, nobody can tell you what to do.
See, I always like my thoughts on the Lev Bell thing was always, at least when he left the Steelers, he bet on himself. Like I can't fault a guy for betting on himself. It didn't pan out. It obviously wasn't the right decision looking back at it, and he lost money and went to a much worse situation for him in New York. But I can't fault him for trying that, or for doing what he thought was best.
I don't fault him for that, but I fault him for blaming
after.
everyone else.
It's everything
is
after
what I
he
have
made
a problem
that decision.
with.
It's like, all right, dude, come on. Just
he threw Ben under the bus. Now he's throwing Andy Reid under the bus.
The more he opens his mouth, the more problems there are. And I think it's unfortunate because he was a likable dude. I always liked him in Pittsburgh. It wasn't an A-B situation where he went off the rails and like put other people in harm's way. He just was, kind of a goofy character. And until he started doing what you said, it was kind of like, all right, whatever. But now, especially a guy like look at the two coaches he's talking about, Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, Adam Gase. I would throw him under the bus,
but like
for real. But
Andy Reid, I've never. And obviously you're closer to the NFL than we are. But I mean, I've never heard a single bad word about Andy Reid.
That's because Adam Gase probably let him do whatever he wanted. He probably never was like, you know what, you're good. Like, I'm not even gonna reprimand you. Andy Reid is probably like, yeah, you're probably not gonna play today. Like,
yeah,
we got to win. And Lev's like, well, I need my touches, and he's like, no, like we're here to win. Yeah. And Lev, he probably didn't like that. And and those strong. I mean, and they won. So it's like, it's a tough situation for, in his mind, for him. So
right.
You look, and then you look at the AB situation. AB goes off the rails and goes nuts and dyes his mustache and just is throwing gummies at his wife, and like then he freaking wins a Super Bowl. It's like you can't, like, it's just.
Hey.
That's why I don't believe in karma. I don't believe in
it. It's life. Like it's weird. It's weird.
Dorin, before we wrap up and get you out of here, I want to talk a little bit about your new gig, man. You are, what's your title again? I know you're with the Penguins in the front office. Mm-hmm. You are the community development
director of project development. So the $1 billion project that's going on across the street, where the Civic Arena used to be, I'm overseeing that for the Penguins and our development team, and just kind of being the liaison for the Penguins, the community, the city, and the development partners that we have.
Now we've again, this is something else we talked with you about the last time, but maybe a lot of people just associate you with football, but you're a pretty big hockey fan, and for a while wanted to be a full-time NHL guy. Wanted to go the hockey route, right?
Oh my! What a power forward he would have been. My God.
Yeah. I did.
Hey, we found our answer to Tom Wilson, man.
I did. You know what? And we had some defensemen that were hurt early in the season, and somebody looked at me and was like, "Can you skate still?"
No
and
kidding.
I was like, well, "Oh, maybe a little bit, but yeah." But yeah, I grew up playing hockey, and I loved it. Growing up watching Mary Lemieux and all those guys, and it's just amazing to actually be inside of that and to see how they operate. And if you're there for one day, you see why they win. Just everything from top to bottom.
Now, the question that I have for you is, I know because I had friends that used to play in the or used to work in the organization. I know about those staff pickup games. Have you got into them yet?
No, but you know what? I have been asked because they're like, well, they're like, we do these staff pickup games before the games in the morning, like early in the morning. They're like, would you be interested in doing that whenever like COVID is lifted? We're probably going to start it back up next year. I'm like, yeah, I'll try. And like, none of them know I could skate. Like none of them know that. None of them know that. Like, all right, like kind of like looking at me. I'm like, none of them. I'm going to go out there. I'm taking everybody out.
Are you because like it took me the longest to get pro. Like I for a while there, I played ice hockey, but like I had to hide myself on the rink because I didn't know how to skate backwards. It took me like years to learn how to skate backwards. Like how are you with skating? Like are you ready to go all 200 feet or?
It's like riding a bike to me. Like,
Yeah.
so if I know that like we have like a morning skate, I'll probably skate like the week before on my own. Like go to a stick time just to get my bearings underneath me to start feeling it, and then I'll be good.
Man.
But it would only take me like a couple hours to start getting in the groove.
All right, so if you're gonna put in an all NFL hockey team together, so obviously I'm gonna put you on the team. We've got JJ Watt.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got. I saw Gronk had a little bit of skill.
Oh my God.
Against the he was up there with the Lightning. Who else in the NFL that you know of? It's a hockey guy,
or just football guys in general. Yeah.
Yeah, football guy in general that you think could play on the ice a little bit.
I mean, like
just the three of you, 3 tight ends on that team. I'm not messing with that line. Like I'm not.
Well, I know Don Barber. He was my teammate. He doesn't. We're both retired. But Don Barber, he was Marion Barber's brother.
Yeah.
He played hockey at Minnesota and he played safety at Minnesota. So
okay.
At Minnesota College. So he was a safety with the Texans with me. So I know that he could for sure play because that's all we did was talk hockey, throw in dips and talk hockey all the time. So he would be one. I think like Bakhtiari, like Dave Bakhtiari, I think that he would probably be good on skates. He's pretty big, but I feel like for some reason he could probably skate. And let's put one more. Oh man, we gotta get a
need a goalie or a speed guy.
I know, like a speed guy. Yeah, I would.
We got a bunch of bruisers on this. I mean, this is a throwback to like 70s hockey line right now, man. Like,
I bet you like Cole Beasley would probably be pretty good.
Yeah. Well,
he needs to get his shot first.
Hey, let me ask you a question before you go about hockey. So, one of the things, especially for people that follow me on Twitter, that I talk about is like. The NBA and NFL are so much more friendly as far as casual viewers go because they promote their stars and they change their rules to make their game more friendlier for casual viewers. And I'm always someone that like I like when other people like hockey. Like I'm always trying to get people involved. You're commissioner for a day, you're right? Gary Bettman's out, you're in. What would you do to make hockey more nationally accepted as and mainstream?
I mean, I would push it at each level. I would try to push it at the the college level, the junior level, the other leagues. I would try to push them and just make it more noticeable. And I think people, they don't play hockey because one, it's expensive. I would make it as much inexpensive as I could for the youth. So
yes.
more youths could play. Like, I mean, every year it's $2,000. The ice time's at 5 a.m. or 11 p.m. at night. So I would fix that. If I was the NHL, I would raise funds to put into that to make it more accessible for kids to play the game and promote it more. Promote the guys. The Crosbys, the Ovechkins, the Stamkoses, the McDavids. Those guys. Just put them on they're your money makers. Like I would put them as they were the LeBrons, like literally, like you're doing a commercial with LeBron. Like I'm going to, whoever your rep is, say you're sponsored by Nike. Like I'm going to Nike and be like, all right, well, I want all of them in a commercial. I want Sidney Crosby in a commercial with LeBron. Like I want Sidney Crosby in a commercial with Bryce, what's his name for the baseball player?
Bryce Harper.
Bryce Harper. Like I would try to get them with the other big athletes just so they could be seen.
The old-time Canadian guys are hating this idea so much. They're like, no.
I'm with you. One of the things I remember, I get into soccer around World Cup time, and I remember listening to one of the soccer analysts talk about the Team USA, and if USA Soccer could just like do what you're talking about with the NHL, with all of the athletes that we have in the U.S., like we'd have a dominant soccer team. Nobody would be able to play with us. The thing is everybody wants to play basketball, football, and baseball. I feel it's the exact same way with hockey. If you can get some of these athletes that are, just freaks of nature and teach them how to skate.
But that's the problem is it's
right,
too
like,
random to play ice
too,
hockey.
but that's to his point.
Yeah.
You think that Canada is dominant right now. Imagine if we got some of these athletes that we have in the U.S. playing. Imagine Antonio Brown on ice skates. Imagine, you know what I mean? Like, as a speed, as a speed winger, or imagine you as a power forward or a defenseman. I mean, like that's the thing. Like, it's so expensive right now, and I think you're right. The first thing they have to do is figure out a way to cut the cost.
Yeah, it has to be more accessible, and I think they're doing good by they signed a contract with TNT and ESPN.
Yeah,
NHL
that's a big step.
That's a huge step. They hired Gretzky. I forget who else they hired for analysts. So they're kind of going the route of the TNT, the NBA, inside the NBA crew. They want to have like different guys and different mentalities, different swag.
I wouldn't mind
on
them
that.
keeping Charles Barkley and
oh my
God,
dude,
for
yes.
hockey.
It's
so much fun,
Right.
They don't have to know a lot about the game. Have Gretzky and somebody and like Elliot Friedman for that.
When you watch an NFL broadcast, or if you watch a post game show, you have people that you grew up watching and knowing. In NHL, they're like, "Hey, here's this third line winger that
Kevin Bieksa,
that you've never heard of." And as a casual viewer, if a casual viewer turns on the TV and they see like Teemu Selanne, Wayne Gretzky, they're probably going to be more enticed to stick around and hear what those guys have to say.
I mean, I hate to say it, but even like a Paul Bissonnette, like
anybody that
who's
has
got some
rain
character and who has who can have some
I was
fun.
saying Jerome McGinley, and that is one thing. Like when it is what it is, but when you have players that aren't white and aren't Canadian, you have to promote those guys as well. Because if I see a Jerome McGinley, I'm like, wait a minute, that dude's a Hall of Fame hockey player. Like that's that might want a young kid from Homestead to get involved in hockey.
Yeah. Right.
So
right.
I mean, you
definitely
have to do that stuff, and they don't.
You got to get a gritty guy too. I mean, like a Scott Stevens or somebody that just was like gritty back in the day. That will keep it real on TV. Maybe you'll have to bleep him out. I mean, Charles Barkley keeps it real. He swears every single time he's on TV. Like that's all right. Like I want to see that. I know we want to see that. Maybe it's not great for children, but that's more authentic to me than
a guy you hook the parents, then you hook the children.
Then you hook the kids, right? Yeah. So I mean, I think that they're going to try to go that route. I think that's a good first step, and you just have to make it accessible, and you have to make it more known that it is a great sport.
Yep. Well, Dorin, two things I love about having you on is we can go for hours with you, and we could pretty much bring up anything. You are so knowledgeable in hockey and football, like business. I mean, it's everything, man. So, we caught NFL, NHL, high school football today, just in the 20 minutes, half hour we had you on. So, always a pleasure being with you, man. Always fun having you on.
Always a pleasure, guys, and I appreciate it. And honestly, you guys are doing your thing. I'm proud of you guys. You guys are moving up. This is what we need. We need more people like us young fellas in this industry. We need to keep doing this. Very proud of you guys. You guys keep killing it.
Thanks, Dorin.
Thanks for listening to 412 Sports Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you like the show, leave us a review, and be sure to tell a friend about your source for all things Pittsburgh sports. Find us on Twitter at MadChad412 and at Eddie_P_412.